introduction. I've forgotten all those things, or forgotten a lot of them anyway. I'd like to thank IMZ for inviting me to give this address. As most of you know, in addition to building its own extensive classical catalogue over the past 30 years, Naxos is now in the forefront of distribution of recorded classical music, both audio and audiovisual. The Naxos Group's involvement with audiovisual product began with the marketing and distribution of classical DVD in the very early days of the format. Back in the year 2000, our main promotional approach was twofold. Not only to market individual films and productions to media, retailers and consumers, but also the fundamental task of explaining what a DVD or the digital versatile disc actually was. The message we were trying to put over in those early days was clear, that DVD offered many obvious advantages over VHS, and these benefits were particularly applicable to films of classical music performance, whether it was the extra interviews or artist features, or just the superior picture and sound quality. Such advantages have more recently been taken to a new level with the emergence of the Blu-ray format. However, although these physical formats are relatively new, demand for them appears to have come under threat in the digital age. Just to take an example from my home market, UK sales of music video in physical formats have seen a sharp decline over recent years. This slide shows the sales development over the last 6 years there. It's a pretty steep downward turn, as you can see, although before you get too depressed, sorry, I should have said that earlier. Before you get too depressed, I should add this is across all genres, and not only the classical, and figures can very often be distorted by a particularly strong pop release. Nevertheless, there is a clear downward trend, and that's typical in most of the major markets. However, there are some signs that the significant drop in physical sales in music home video is starting to level off. As is the case with audio recordings, an increasing amount of content has become freely available online, and I do mean freely. And this has served to facilitate consumer access to a wide range of music, often with minimal or even zero compensation for the rights holder. An IFPI report last year indicated that 57% of internet users were accessing music and music video content through YouTube. It would be too complacent of us to assume that this just applies to short pop videos, as there is a substantial amount of full-length classical content currently on the YouTube platform, and this is being consumed, often by high numbers of people. Furthermore, there is an increasing number of paid-for VOD options and subscription to streaming platforms, such as Medici TV, the Naxos Video Library, which offer convenient access and a wide range of cultural programming, but also more realistic level of revenue to producers. Alongside this are, of course, the broadcasts and cinematic screenings taking place around the world. Now, I'm very well aware of the difference between recorded music and classical cultural programming, but I do think it's of interest to look at how the consumption of recorded music has developed over the last 10 years. This second slide shows the recent development of UK album sales. Again, this is all genres and not only classical, but the trend is very, very clear there. We see a marked decline in physical sales, although leveling off recently over the last few years, and a growth in digital sales, in download sales, although that's starting to drop. A lot has been said and written about the demise of the CD, and it is true that the advent of downloads brought with it a marked slump in sales of physical product, as we can see. However, there are now indications that the level of CD sales is reaching something of a plateau, with falls in 2005 being very modest. In the UK, for example, 66% of album sales last year were on CD, the percentage for classical coming in at 80%. In Germany, physical sales still account for 69% of the music market. Downloads of music in most major markets have peaked and are now in decline as a large number of consumers move towards streaming. This has brought with it particular challenges, not least in terms of continued downward price pressure, and with that, the issue of sufficient monetization for producers. But again, it does appear that the demand for a physical product is now starting to show some resilience, albeit on a much lower plateau than that which we saw at the height of the CD boom. So what lessons, if any, can we draw from this for cultural films? In this respect, it is important to remember music cannot be considered in the same way as cultural programming, which quite obviously engages both the auditory and visual senses. Music, even classical music, is often used as background noise while consumers are engaged in other activities, possibly even more so when they're not paying for it. Whereas audio-visual content, by its very nature, simply doesn't work as background, not only the documentary, where there is a clear narrative thread, but also performance. This means that the level of engagement by the consumer tends to be on a deeper, arguably more rewarded level, and that in many cases, a consumer is likely to often wish to return to that experience. While the opportunity simply to access content online may fulfill that requirement for some, I feel this need is often best met by ownership of a physical product with all its tangibility. Furthermore, the digital revolution in recorded music allowed consumers to easily download and consume music by individual tracks, songs, or movements. This doesn't really apply to cultural films, where standalone excerpts make no sense, and therefore hold little attraction for the consumer. Looking now at another industry, that of book publishing, the indications are that sales of physical books have stabilised after the initial impact of the e-book, with several markets actually seeing a growth in physical book turnover last year. In the UK, for example, there was an increase in turnover of 6.6%, and this growth applied to most genres, even including fiction. In the field of audiobooks, where most consumption is now through downloads, the UK market also saw a modest increase in sales of physical product, a rise of 3.3% in 2015. So while I don't wish to ignore the clear recent shift in consumption away from physical formats, I am concerned that in our enthusiasm to engage in the opportunities afforded by new technologies, we risk losing sight of those we actually have in the present for physical product. Let's not assume either that the market for DVD and Blu-ray has been completely saturated. I know from the music world that there are numerous opportunities to sell physical products, and not only through the retail giants such as Amazon and other online shops, but directly to the public. Our own distribution network has had success in selling physical product, whether CD or DVD Blu-ray, at concert venues where there is often an enthusiastic and ready market looking for a souvenir of their evening. If this can be enhanced by an artist signing session, then so much the better. While sales in these instances are normally, though not always, in the tens rather than hundreds of units, although occasionally we have experienced events where we have sold several £1,000s worth of product, there is a cumulative effect that makes concert sales of potential significance, particularly given the reduction in the number of traditional music shops. Regardless of the mode of consumption, how we promote our content to consumers remains a key issue. I don't think we should get overly concerned by the idea that different channels are in competition with one another, that, for example, television broadcasts are cannibalising sales of physical product or video on demand. While we know that consumers will hopefully pay their money and take their choice about how they wish to consume, a television broadcast can often trigger a demand for ownership of a film, whether digitally or in physical format. Cross-promotion can work both ways. Marketers of physical product can, for example, promote particular television broadcasts of films, and this can be easily done through social media platforms and otherwise. On the other side of the coin, by simply tagging product at the end of each broadcast, television channels can convey an important promotional message to consumers about the possibility of a physical purchase. All the better then if trailers for similar programming can also be placed on television alongside broadcasts. This is a core market, and we need to be using every opportunity to raise awareness of what programs are available. Even without trailers, we know that a television broadcast in itself has the potential to generate not only high consumer awareness, but subsequent physical sales. In one notable instance, we have seen sales in the tens of thousands of DVDs as a direct result of a television broadcast. In the early days of the CD, there was a product which could often be found in stores called a sampler. And the sampler concept, whether an introduction to a particular genre of music or just to a given format, has been deployed by several DVD labels to good effect, with some such products selling in the tens of thousands. Often we're asking consumers to pay a significant amount of money for our products, and it is reasonable that they will want to have a taste of what they're getting before parting with their money. As a distributor, we are able to position trailers with online retailers, even with some media, and labels are often placing these on other online platforms to great promotional effect. Through magazines and retailers, we are often able to set up competitions as part of our effort to raise consumer awareness of particular productions. Again, in the case of performance programming, if we can get access to items such as concert programs or posters, preferably signed by the artist, then this can create additional excitement around such activities, rather than just offering free DVDs as at present. These may seem like small promotional things, but are nonetheless relevant for that. However, we need to have greater ambition rather than just speaking to our core market. We need to create a sense of excitement and anticipation around content. The practical difficulty for us as a distributor is that in the case of an opera or concert, the product is released sometime after the original production. So there is a challenge to recapture the sense of moment. One idea which goes some way to address this, and has been done with success in the past, is to put on a screening. This cannot be done for all content, and the selected film will vary between different markets, according to local taste. But this is one promotional activity where all our interests are aligned. We can reach the media, the opinion formers, who are crucial in raising awareness of our content amongst the public. We can also reach and influence retailers, both online and traditional, and get them to support particular films. Dependent on the scale of the event, it can also be an opportunity to sell physical product alongside the screening. Such a promotion is of benefit to all parties: producers, broadcasters, labels, distributors and retailers. Screenings in cinema afford a further and as yet largely unexploited opportunity to cross-promote. Although some cinema goers may not feel the impulse to buy a physical version of a film they have just seen, others may, if not for themselves then as a gift for someone else. Research suggests that purchasing a gift accounts for a large part of the physical music market. In any case, we can only put the opportunity in front of them, ideally with some kind of discounted promotion, perhaps through a voucher or code for online purchase, as an incentive to buy to own. I mentioned social media earlier, and it is important that this is used to a maximum, but also that this promotional activity is not only centred around the concert or original production itself, but also around the release of the physical product. The best advocate here is the artist or artists themselves, who often have a strong reach and profile. After all, it is with the artists that there is a more intense level of engagement and connection on the part of the consumer. So it is for us to firstly ensure artists are well informed about physical release dates, and then to try and get them tweeting or messaging their followers on social media. So my overall message today is that despite the drop in sales over recent years, we should not give up on the DVD and Blu-ray just yet. This is still a decent business, and between all of us there is more we can do to promote the fantastic content that is being created. Rather than leaving this function to someone else in the supply chain, we can build a fuller collaboration between producers, labels, marketers and distributors with one common aim. The ways that consumers can consume will continue to develop, but together we can be ready to maximise the opportunities afforded by both the old and the new. Thank you for listening.